Baek Jin-Woo still walked through the door with the same controlled posture, still removed his coat with military precision, still carried silence like armor pressed tightly against his ribs. But now I knew why. And knowing changes everything. It doesn't make fear disappear. It gives it a shape. It teaches it where to live inside you. Understanding didn't bring relief. It brought awareness. Awareness of how close danger had always been, how casually I had lived beside it without knowing its name. Sleep abandoned me first. Nights stretched longer than they should have, the dark feeling heavier than before. I lay awake listening to the rhythm of Jin-Woo's breathing, wondering how many times he had stood between death and our door while I slept peacefully beside him. Once you realize someone is bleeding silently for you, rest starts to feel like betrayal. Days passed, and patterns revealed themselves. Things I once dismissed as coincidence began lining up too neatly to ignore. The men outside changed faces more often. Routes shifted without explanation. Conversation stopped when I entered rooms, not because they didn't trust me, but because silence was safer than truth. Protection, I learned, doesn't always look gentle. Sometimes it looks like preparation. Jin-Woo tried to keep my world small. Familiar. Controlled. But danger has a way of expanding beyond walls. Even when nothing happens, your body knows when something is wrong. You feel it in the way the air presses against your chest. In the way footsteps echo a second too long behind you. In the way silence suddenly feels crowded. One morning, as Jin-Woo buttoned his cufflinks, I asked him quietly if it was really over. Not loudly. Not emotionally. Just a simple question shaped by too many sleepless nights. He didn't answer immediately. His eyes stayed fixed on his reflection. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, but honesty slipped through the cracks. He said no. He said it was close, but not finished. That honesty terrified me more than his silence ever had. I tried to keep my routine unchanged. Morning tea. Short walks. The illusion of normalcy. But normal becomes a performance once danger memorizes your name. Every step feels observed. Every moment feels borrowed. The night everything shifted began with a feeling I couldn't explain. Not fear. Wrongness. The city felt staged, like a scene waiting for actors to step into frame. Jin-Woo warned me he'd be late. He always warned me now. I should have listened. But fear doesn't always make you cautious. Sometimes it makes you crave control. I stepped outside just to breathe, just to remind myself I still existed beyond locked doors and guarded halls. The street was empty in a way that felt intentional. Then the black sedan slowed beside me. Not aggressively. Not suspiciously. Confidently. The window lowered, and the man inside looked ordinary enough to disappear in a crowd. That was what terrified me most. He spoke calmly, almost politely. He said I was valuable. Not to kill. To keep. That Baek Jin-Woo loved me too much, and that love was expensive. In that moment, everything became clear. They weren't trying to erase me. They were trying to dismantle him. Gunfire interrupted the conversation before fear could fully bloom. Precise. Controlled. The man collapsed without drama, like a puppet with its strings cut. Shadows moved across rooftops with practiced efficiency. Jin-Woo was there almost immediately. No panic. No shouting. Just action. He wrapped his coat around my shoulders, checked my breathing, my pulse, my eyes. Only when he was certain I was alive did his hands begin to tremble. He told me he had warned me not to go out alone. There was no anger in his voice. Only fear. Raw and unguarded. The kind of fear that exposes love more brutally than any confession. That night rewired something inside me. Fear didn't vanish. It sharpened into clarity. I stopped seeing myself as something fragile that needed to be hidden. I started paying attention. I learned without asking. Roots. Signals. The language of silence. I watched how power moved through rooms without raising its voice. How decisions were made without consensus. How information traveled faster than threats. Jin-Woo noticed the change. He told me I shouldn't have to live like this. I told him I already was. I had simply stopped pretending otherwise. Loving him had placed a price on my existence. Denying that truth wouldn't protect me. It would only make me careless. The enemy revealed himself slowly, through arrogance. A name from Jin-Woo's past. A man he once spared. Mercy is remembered longer than violence, and they mistook restraint for weakness. They wanted him to choose. Power or me. I watched Jin-Woo read the message. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. Not fear of death. Fear of loss. That was when I understood they had miscalculated. Because I had already chosen. I stepped forward and took the phone from his hand. I told him they weren't testing his strength. They were testing whether I existed beyond him. Whether I was only leverage or something far more dangerous. That night, the city shifted quietly. Not with blood, but with understanding. Warnings were delivered. Lines were redrawn. Not in Baek Jin-Woo's name. In mine. By morning, the watching hadn't stopped. But the tone had changed. Curiosity replaced confidence. Respect replaced arrogance. As Jin-Woo slept beside me, breathing slow and heavy, I stared into the darkness and asked myself a question I could no longer avoid. When the final line is crossed, will I stop him? Or will I be the one who gives the order first? Because loving Baek Jin-Woo didn't just make me a target. It awakened something inside me that danger could no longer intimidate. And I knew then. This was only the beginning. If this story pulled you in, like this video. If the emotion stayed with you, share it. And if you want to see what happens when that final line is crossed, watch out for part 3.